Happy New Year.
Happy 2020, 2020, a year that seemed impossibly far in the future when I was a kid. And yet here I am.
Yeah, we
Uh,
are beyond so many of the futures suggested by media.
yeah. We've left Kubrick in the dust.
We've
Um,
left Blade Runner in the dust.
yeah. And gosh, it's not lived up to a lot of those bits of hype, has it? But
No,
we
as
have
as
new amazing bits of hype that they could never have conceived of, like TikTok.
TikTok. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. The future is simultaneously more futuristic and much stupider than we ever could have imagined.
That was always the problem. You let, people who have a unseemly interest in intellect in charge of being futurologists, and they never fully account for just how dumb we all are, and it works out. So, yeah, it's our traditional end of year Trucksapalooza roundup, where we talk about all of our favorite things from the year, reflect on the year that's passed, look to the year ahead. Josh, hit me with your top 10 list.
Okay, I don't really have a top 10 list. And the reason I don't have a top 10 list is mainly that I kind of just distanced myself from the activity of like trying to keep track of the cool things happening media wise this year and instead just sort of got really deep into my own aesthetics. But I
Hmm.
could, I think there's
What
pretty much.
is happening?
What do you mean?
Did
What
you
something
see that?
happened? It might be because I alt tabbed for a second. I
the
didn't see
tr-
it.
that truck essentially moonwalked across the intersection. I'll be interested to
Oh,
see if it ends up looking that way in the
I
capture.
suppose it must. There isn't some other way for it to look. Anyway, there is one thing I culturally engaged in a big way this year, and that was kind of the same kind of music that I am making. I listened to a lot of. So, would you like me to just list a bunch of weird ambient albums?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Yeah, give me your top 10 that didn't come out this year, but you discovered them this year. Ambient albums.
No, no, no. I've compiled for you a list of a bunch that did in fact come out this year.
Oh my God, I came into, I set you up like this because I thought that we were going to spend most of this trucks talking about why you weren't going to make a list, but you actually made a list.
I only made a list of this.
It's
And
Josh's top 10 ambient music albums of
I how
2019.
many do I actually have? I have one, two, three, four, five, six, seven. I have seven of them.
Seven.
Okay, and here's the trouble is I'm not really gonna have a whole lot to say about these individually. So I'm
Just say a bunch of abstract words to me, Josh, and I'll believe you.
here we are. If you want to listen to some shapelessness, then check out Loom Dream by Leaf. I'll put these up on the screen so you know how they're spelled. Um, Komachi by Meitei. Also I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing these correctly. Ecstatic Computation by Katerina Barbieri. Fenez by no
Nope,
Fenez did
absolutely not.
Agora.
Even I know that.
Agora by Fenez. This, if I were to pick the number one, that would be it.
Yeah,
Um,
Finesse is pretty bomb. Like that's, I mean, I've actually heard and listened to music by Finesse and enjoyed it even without like being all
yeah.
into this stuff. That's how good Finesse is.
You know, I heard about Fenez because he did some collaborations with Ryuichi Sakamoto that I never particularly liked, but his solo stuff, it turns out, is actually really good. So go
There's a
figure.
particular album of his that I like that feels like being trapped in the womb of a large animal with an electric guitar.
You know the name of it?
I can look it up
All right, look it up and
while
I'll
you
put it up on
continue
the
to
screen.
list this
Yeah.
stuff.
Fade to Grey by 36 is very good.
Okay.
Um, Tracing Back the Radiance by Jeffrey Cantu Ledzema.
Ooh.
Very, very good. A little jazzy almost at times. And also, Nick Cave kind of took a step in this direction,
Oh
which was
wow. Okay.
which was a surprise. It still has words, and it's more shapely than most, but it's definitely almost kind of new agey,
Mm.
and it's just like arcs of sound with his kind of poetry reading over top of it. His like lightly sang poetry reading. You know how he does that sometimes. It's a very good album. I think it's my favorite from him in a long time.
Yeah, I mean that sounds like some sort of Scott Walkery territory.
Yeah.
at best, slash Lou Reed and Metallica territory at worst.
Yeah. I'd like to talk a little bit about what kind of interests me about this kind of music, since I have spent the year with
Absolutely.
it.
Since I bothered to look it up, let me just tell you that the Finesse album that I was talking about is called Venice, and it came out in 2004.
Nice. I'll have to check that one out. There's like a lot of finesse to listen to.
Yep.
It's kind of hard to explain the appeal of this kind of music, but like for me it comes to me in a very in an almost mystical way, you know?
Right.
Like it to me it creates the sensation of getting at kind of the core of what music has been all along, like stripping away the ornamentation, ideas like progression and narrative.
An interest.
Hey, still interesting. It's just that the interest is created by shifting textures or by meditation on unshifting textures. It seems that most ambient music that comes out nowadays is very like sentimentally active, you know, like it
Right,
kind of
right.
it goes straight for the emotionally active you know, harmony spaces. If
And
you
you're like,
get-
I don't want to feel things.
but maybe I do want to feel things. Maybe it's the year of feeling things. It has been a year of feeling things, I would say, but we'll get to that later.
You just feel more subtle and complicated things than the 154 provides.
Yeah, are you subtle and complicated, or is it simple? It's like that's kind of the fascinating contradiction, is that this music is subtle in its it's very simple in its musical structure, right? Like maybe
Right.
maybe you're repeating a few notes. Maybe if you're lucky, you have a chord progression in there that repeats. But like the subtlety comes from the textures and from the space created. And
See, I mean, it seems to me like it approaches what, you know, John Cage's favorite music was, which
For
was
sure.
listening out of his apartment window.
yeah, and you know, he has a few pieces that I think sound like contemporary drone music. I'm very fond of the Imaginary Landscape. I think it's Imaginary Landscape 4, which is done by the whole score for it is just timing for when to turn a bunch of radios on and off.
Hey.
And so, I mean, there's a really strong conceptual element to that, which is that the piece will sound completely different depending on where you perform it. And there are 3 recordings that I found. One of them was done in San Francisco, I think, in probably the 2000s. And so you get like this interesting collage of like blips of sound and speech. And there's another one that's done in like South America, and you just get this mostly static scape.
Wow, that does sound really cool.
Yeah, it's dope.
It's very interesting to me how this is the absolute opposite of what my music what my musical taste has been this year, because like my favorite album of the year was Caligula by Lingua Ignota, which
yeah.
is not in any way abstract. It is very direct. it is conveying a series of highly charged emotions, very highly charged, very specific emotions, and the music is absolutely there in order to heighten that emotional impact, in a sort of shock and awe kind of a way.
Yeah.
Very utilitarian kind of a way. So I'm like way off in the I'm way off in the fields.
Yeah.
But I like it's sort of interesting to me, this ambience, which I mean, I can enjoy it, of course. I can enjoy most everything, particularly these days. But it's like, it seems to be in keeping with a sort of descent isn't the right word, but the general turn toward the mystical and the numinous that you've been undergoing this year. This is sort of the year where I became a wizard and sort of Josh became a kind of
A shaman.
That's
Maybe.
exactly what I was going to say, but I didn't want to put the word in there unless you
Yeah.
wanted to claim it. We've spec'd into 2 different mage classes this year, you and I, Josh.
Yeah, I'm
With
happy
the-
about it.
Yeah. I mean, it's good. We complement each other as a result of this. But
Yeah, and I probably wouldn't be hearing this stuff in the same way if I wasn't producing similar stuff.
yeah.
It's a very... I feel like I've entered the cathedral of sound in a way, and I'm exploring its nooks and crannies. There's a
lot of reverb
definitely-
there in the Cathedral of Sound.
There is a lot of reverb in the cathedral. And yeah, like but listening to it, knowing that I'm working in a similar space does kind of have a, oh, I just watched a child fall over out my window. I think he's okay.
Is it the same child that used to run up and down the street yelling?
No, it's a much smaller child.
Yes. I guess that one probably isn't a child anymore.
No, he does still hang out there though. Yeah, it's a very participatory feeling.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense to me. When I was learning to make music for the first time, I definitely had that feeling. It definitely changed the way that I listened to music. Like, it really helped me to hear all of the different things that were going on in like a standard, 4-piece rock idiom or what have you. Having like had to focus on what all of those things were and how those sounds were made. Like I was able to unpiece those threads much more easily, which kind of hampers your enjoyment in a certain way. Are you getting the same kind of temporal fuckery on your end that I am on mine?
No, I think it's just the stream.
I think it's just the stream. All right, that's fine. I'll try not to react to it then, but there's been some wild things going on.
It's very difficult, at least for me, to deconstruct how like a weird synthesizer was made, especially nowadays when like a lot of it. I know Finesse works with Macs, like it's all software.
Right.
Like you would have to get deep into some very particular weeds in order to kind of, what the. Did you?
You very nearly.
I was saved from a train accident.
Ouch.
I would have gotten hit if not for the invisible wall of the already descending barrier.
Wowzers.
But yeah, so that, I guess that kind of contributes to the mystical feeling, is that it's all just a complete mystery how that exact sound was made. So all you're left with really is none of the technique and just all of the sound itself. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So it's not making you more analytical. It's just making you open your ears even wider.
Yeah, which you could call a kind of analysis, but yeah, not the
You're
same
not like,
kind that you're
how do I do
talking
this?
about.
It's more like,
What can this sound do?
Exactly. I'm looking for I'm exploring again. You're exploring the cathedral, poking in its crannies. Seeing where you want to sit down.
There are a lot of beings in the cathedral. There's an eternal feeling to this kind of music, It feels like rather than having created something, it's more that you have described a musical space that was always there in some kind of musical dimension.
Ooh.
That's what I think about when
You're like limning, to use a favorite New York Times word. To limn something is to outline it.
Yeah, interesting.
Generally, one is limned with light. But yeah, it is casting a handful of powder into the air and using that to see the light that was already there, and the eddies and the breezes that were already there.
Yeah, that's a good metaphor for it. I've been kind of thinking of it in terms of like I guess you could almost say like an astral projection sort of idea.
Okay, so you leave your meat and go hang out in the Cathedral of Sound.
I can't say that I'm advanced enough to literally do that, but that's kind of the fantasy.
We only became magic users this year. You're gonna have to gain a few levels before you can start walking the astral plane.
It does feel like that when I'm making it. I once lost 6 hours just fine-tuning some equalizers.
Ooh, that's a feeling.
Yeah.
I haven't been in that like workflowy, that particular kind of flow has not been in my life much. But I remember in the olden days when there's that like kind of uniquely satisfying feeling of looking up and being like, oh, I lost all sense of the passage of time because I was fiddling with this thing. That means I must be doing something.
Yeah, it's a good feeling.
Yeah.
But I think that probably closes the book well enough on my ambient times.
Cool.
What's been your main takeaway this year,
Well, let me.
culturally
I
speaking?
scraped together some music that I really enjoyed this year. We might as well start with that.
Yeah.
I'm looking over it now, and I cannot see a theme.
Okay.
It's just
some
music.
stuff.
It's just music that I like. Here's my top 8 albums of the year, in no particular order. We have 2020 by Richard Dawson, the first Glass Beach album by Glass Beach. That is what it is called. Sweet Princess EP by Dry Cleaning, Triad by Triad God, Young Enough by Charlie Bliss, Slight Disconnects by Biss, and Father of the Bride by Vampire Weekend, and of course Caligula. So yeah, no, there's nothing that really puts these together besides the fact that
Just some good music.
they're just some good music as far as I can tell. Yeah, a lot of storytelling in there. More storytelling than usual. I think I'm moving, as I said, I think I'm moving toward the narrative while you're moving away from it. The album that I liked this year that is the most like, I think what you're describing is Triad God's Triad, which involves a lot of very very formless sort of sonic backgrounds and rapping mostly in a language that I don't know. And so there is that. But it still evokes a very specific place in my brain, even if it's not an accurate one.
Yeah.
It's dipping into a narrative. It's all dipping into narratives for me this year,
Yeah.
building them and trying to break them down.
Yeah. I mean, on that note, this was the year. Actually, this was like the month. This was the week that I finally started being able to enjoy the mountain goats.
Oh,
And,
right.
I'm kind of looking at
slightly
it.
disappointed.
Yeah, I know it's kind of I'm giving up one of my cool gimmicks, but yeah, looking at it through a more like decidedly narrative lens was definitely the key. Like my
It
kind
would
of
be, yeah. They don't have anything else going for them.
right. Like a big objection that I've had to the Mountain Goats in a lot of their stuff is that it often feels like there is an instinct to wallow.
Yes.
But yeah, looking at that through a lens of well, you're not really wallowing, you're describing somebody wallowing has made it make a bit more has made it more palatable.
Were you
let's
under
put it
the
that way.
impression that all of his murder ballads were autobiographical?
No, just that they were sincere. I mean, they are sincere, but
Sincere.
you see what I mean? Like that.
How dare you? Yeah.
Like that he's describing his own feelings without any particular.
Without sufficient mediation and consideration.
Yes, but the mediation comes from the fact that he's actually describing somebody else's feelings and he's describing outcomes that weren't his own outcomes, etc.
Yes. I mean, the wrestling album was a big clue for that one, but you apparently got to this through his Wizard album,
The Wizard album, yes.
which I have not listened to out of a sense of professional distrust.
It has a couple of very bad tracks on it, but it also has a couple of very good tracks on it. And I suppose there's probably some underlying narrative that threads through it. I get the sense that there is. I haven't actually sat down and pieced it together yet, but I'm intrigued. And I like it when the bands do the Wizards. I can only really think of Journey of the Sorcerer by the Eagles, but somehow like the rock Wizard gets to the Earthsea feeling.
Someday your prog phase will come, Josh, and then
Yeah.
we're all doomed.
I had a prog phase in high school. I listened to the Deer Hunter back then.
Deer Hunter the band?
The Deer Hunter with a
Oh.
DEAR.
Oh, I don't actually know what that is. I was like, there's a band called Deer Hunter and the movie The Deer Hunter. But
Yeah.
apparently there's a band called The Deer Hunter with an
The
A.
other Deer Hunter. The other Deer Hunter. I think I played you some of their stuff. They're kind of like emo prog. It's
Yeah, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like Rick Wakeman wearing a cape is what I'm talking about, you know.
Yeah.
I'm talking about like
King Crimson.
serious Dungeons and Dragons core.
Yeah, that shit is
Prog
pretty
rock.
hype. I've always kind of distantly liked it.
I think someday you'll fall into it. That's my estimation, or maybe not. Maybe that's my path. Maybe I've got. Maybe I will.
Maybe we'll form a prog rock band together. The Wizard and the Shaman. I mean, that's a band name.
Fry and Laurie had a fake band called the Warlord and the Bishop. Um,
Ah, our
but
influences are coming together.
yeah, there you go. I mean, I'm obvious. You know, and you know, you always think you're the Fry, but maybe in the end you're more of the Laurie, or the other way around. It's. I
I
hope
feel
I'm
like
not the
I'm.
Fry
I
ultimately.
feel like it seems clear enough to me that you're the Fry and I'm the Laurie.
Ah, God, the worst possible outcome.
Would you rather be the Laurie? I mean, yeah,
Yeah, but I'm
the
clearly not.
good. But, you know,
Uh,
we're talking about the good Steven,
yeah, exactly, exactly. I
the
just,
old Steven.
I don't want to. I mean, frankly, like just taking a bunch of cocaine and running away to Belgium would be like a nice vacation for me.
Yeah,
That sounds like a good time. But but yeah,
I,
no, that's the music.
I've
That's
got.
music for the year.
Before we close the book on music, I've got two albums that came out this year that are good but don't fall into the previous category.
Okay, go for it.
Miles Okazaki, The Sky Below. My favorite jazzer, I've mentioned him before.
Jazzo.
No one's gonna listen to me, but you should really check it out.
Hmm.
And also Big Thief released two albums that were very good.
Yeah, I didn't. I wasn't sufficiently grabbed by them to put them on my favorites list, but
That
it's
song Not,
clearly good stuff.
that
Yeah, it's a
song
good song.
Not, dude, like
It's a good song.
that's an all-timer.
Mm. I didn't like
Okay.
anything on those two albums as much as I liked.
Are we in Utah?
Yes.
We made it. It's new.
Hooray! New for the new year. A lot of maces.
What? Look
You
at
know,
that.
there's just scattering balloons around. Oh, and we've got an excavator.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's what is it exactly? It's a wheel loader.
Whoa.
It doesn't really look like anything I would call a wheel loader. Why is my game freezing up? Looks like a bulldozer to me.
I mean,
What do
it's
I
got
know?
a scoop on the front rather than a dozer.
Hmm.
Uh, so here's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, oh, never mind.
What?
I was gonna talk about. I was gonna like try to talk about something more interesting about any of those albums that I reeled off.
No, yeah, go for it.
I'm gonna try to say one interesting thing about all of them to get it. 2020 by Richard Dawson is amazing. That isn't really an interesting thing to say about it, but it is all. It's one of those things that sort of does the Mountain Goats bit, where it's like there are people who'd accused him of being sort of mawkish. Because there's a lot of songs about being poor and or having a job that you hate, or being homeless in one case. And like I read a review where it was like, this is, the usual person who doesn't have to work, sort of imagining how bad work is, and which is absolutely not the sense that I get from it. But like even then, all you need to do to earn that kind of thing is to be good enough at what you do, and he's good enough at what he does,
Yeah.
as far as I'm concerned. So it's an extremely abrasive and emotionally unpleasant album, but is also incredibly good, and I can't recommend it enough. The first Glass Beach album by Glass Beach is a shot of emo adrenaline right into your pineal gland. I love it. It makes me feel young. Caligula by Lingua Ignota is the scariest album that I've ever heard. I actually got to see her perform. She's incredibly scary in real life. She is unbelievably talented, which is what makes it. The fact that she has such obvious chops making this music about hatred and trauma and revenge and all of this. If you can hack it, you should absolutely listen to it.
Yeah.
The Sweet Princess EP by Dry Cleaning is a series of found poems over sort of wiry post-punk music. My favorite of them is just a bunch of excerpts from British media about Meghan Markle, sort of recited dryly over this really sweet riff. But there's also a song that's just made out of snippets of random YouTube comments. It's good stuff, both conceptually and in its execution. I already discussed Triad God. Father of the Bride by Vampire Weekend is the one that people have probably already listened to off of this list. An angle on it of why I think it's good is that it is the most... I've never heard an album by somebody who is happy and rich that didn't make me in some way resentful. You know, like
this one doesn't.
This is a trick that Ezra also pulls off in his other stuff, like in Neo Yokio.
Yeah,
like Ezra Koenig wears his success so classily that you can just sort of share it with him, I feel. There's some tracks on there that are just basically him being like, God, I can't believe how lucky I am. And you're like, well, all right.
That's respectable.
I can relate to that feeling in some ways. Maybe not quite so much in others.
I appreciate that we're both kind of listening to weird shit this year.
Yeah, you've cut me off before I could do all of them.
Oh, I thought that was the last one. My bad.
There's a couple more. Charlie Bliss, Young Enough. You know who Charlie Bliss is. This album has a couple of songs in it that are just amazing. And watch the trailer for Meredith Grant's Game that has Under You as the thing if you need a pitch for listening to this album. And Biss got together after years and years and years apart. That's my favorite band from when I was in high school, and put out a fucking great record.
Wow.
I mean, that's
the
worth
reunion
celebrating.
album that's actually good. Yeah. Rare.
Yeah. Zero Stakes are always good, you know?
Yeah.
Biss is fun. I mean, Biss's weak point has always been their lyrics, because they're incredibly sincere and uncrafty, and generally sort of clumsily expressing emotions that are kind of embarrassing. But I think they finally figured out that is what their deal is, and this album feels like they're doing that but on purpose, which is kind of nice. And they also love to write about writing music.
Yeah.
And this album is basically like, one of us had a breakup and suddenly we have something to write about again. We're gonna release an album, and so they just tell you that to start the album off, and it sort of goes on from there. And they've always been way better at music than they need to be. Just weird time signatures and harmonies in their pop, which has always again been one of the reasons why they never took off. But there you go. That's it. That's my music report.
Okay.
Did you have a segue under your belt?
Did I have a what?
A segue? A sieg?
I had one more thing I wanted to say about ambience.
Go for it.
Before we finish talking about music. I like the direction that the genre has gone into, the kind of the immediate emotional resonance sort of zone. But in the early days of the genre, one of the artists that I discovered this year who did work in the past is I believe it's pronounced Eliane, or maybe it's Elaine, but the I is before the A. Radigue. Elaine Radigue.
Put it on the screen.
Yeah, it's already there. And this, I linked one of her things to the Discord once, and you mentioned that it was opening your chakras. I think
I remember that.
In the early days of ambience and drone and stuff, there was a lot more in the way of grading textures, or even near emptiness, and I think there's room to go back to that. I'd like to hear more of that, so make it happen, please, everybody.
All right. Make your ambience less pleasant. That is what Josh demands.
Or less
That's sort of
dramatic,
interesting, because it's Brian Eno, who is meant to be the one who invented this genre, was all about making...
That's a lie, but...
Of course it is, but he was all about making the most pleasant, inoffensive, and unobtrusive music possible.
Yeah, and that stuff was it wasn't kind of grating or empty in the way I'm talking about it, but it was kind of emotionally muted in a way, which is also not super common nowadays. There is some of that though. Tarek released one called Improvisational Loops last year, which gets into some of that zone.
Mm-hmm. I feel like I maybe in my music taste as a general matter, I'm always catching up to you. Like, this is the year when I finally realized the Boards of Canada are the best band that
They're
ever
so good.
existed. um, you know, I was like, it took me a while to come around to that, but they're unbelievably good.
Yeah, I mean, I encountered them when I had the squishy teenage brain, so that helped. Oh, dude,
Yeah.
look at this flatness ahead of us.
I mean, that sure looks like this part of the country.
Yeah.
There's some mesas and some
Yeah.
flatness and some scrub. God, I wonder when I'll get to drive across the country again. It won't be for a while. But
I'm sorry.
you never know. It's okay. I know I'll get to again, and for the time being, I'm just, you know, I'm working for a purpose now, and so it feels good.
Yeah.
That's the strangest thing. I mean, this is like, I mean, we've spent an enormous amount of time talking about music, you know, when like most of the important things that happened this year have nothing to do with art.
Yeah.
You know, in my life at least, like even in making art, even though I put out an album this year, which hasn't happened in God knows how long. I think that was this year, wasn't it? The Wizard album came out this year.
I think so, yeah.
I only became a wizard this year, so it has to have come out this year. Like,
I've been having a bunch of extra cultural thoughts as well.
yeah, it's like my life has
As-
changed dramatically this year. Like, and if I had to sum up, it would be like, you know, in the beginning I was not working for no purpose, and now I'm working for a purpose. And I feel so much better. And like I'm saying, we're recording this on December 10th. The work day I had yesterday was unbelievably awful because it's the lead up to Christmas, and that's the worst time of the year to be a postal worker, pretty handily. But the fact that it's like going somewhere is it's just like my brain works so much better now because my life makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And also because I'm getting a fuck ton of exercise, which is helping with my meat chemicals. But like, it's really astounding just how much difference something like that makes. How it makes doing this sort of enormous amount of labor like not only bearable but kind of welcome. Is just, you know, having the trajectory right in your mind and having your mind right. I don't know how to explain it. I mean, I at some point I'm gonna like have time to go back and make art out of all this, you know?
Yeah.
Like, because that's still what I do, you know, even though I've been too busy to do much of it for many months now. At some point I will put my head above water and be able to start expressing some of what this means.
That's some of
And
the
then,
juju
but
that
then
I need.
I'll have something to express, which is also something that I didn't fucking have at the beginning of this year, you know?
Yeah, I've been feeling the opposite way. I've definitely been feeling like I've been spending too much time just consuming media, and that I need something else. And that was the thing that we were originally thinking that this Trux would be about, and maybe this is the point where it becomes about that sort of thing. I haven't been able to get out of this holding pattern that I've been in. And it's beginning to like, you know, a lot of the way I've been like trying to deal with this is by like getting out there and looking for love, which, you know, there's we could talk about whether that's the most productive way to address it, but like I find that this is a prison that many folks are in. You know, you go out on the date and you spend the whole time talking about the media that you've been consuming solitarily at your computer screen. And like you can't find the way to have a real conversation about anything, and that has been a big reason why I was hesitant to do a year-end list, is because I feel not only a personal need but maybe a certain responsibility at this point to break the cycle.
I mean, are you telling me that the time that we just spent discussing music that nobody's listened to wasn't the most scintillating content possible?
I enjoyed talking about it.
But no, I understand exactly what you mean. Incidentally, if we're gonna, you know, since you said we can talk about whether this is the good, I would say that your chances of finding love go up a lot more when you've already dealt with the existential void,
Oh yeah, for sure.
because the love doesn't actually fix that. It can't. But
It can help. It has helped me in the past. It gives me a sense of something that I'm doing with my life.
something
know?
that you're working towards again, like, you know.
I just mean like when I am with the person, like I can put a lot of energy into. I've said before that I feel like one of my ideal life paths is probably just becoming a house husband to somebody.
Yeah, and I've felt that in the past myself, and I've moved away from that now, which is why which is why my ears pricked up when you said that, as it were, you know. And
Sorry, when I
like,
said what?
and
When I
Ron,
said which thing.
when you said like you're dealing with your feeling of spinning your wheels by going out and looking for love, I was like, boy, that never worked when I tried it, and you know, and even in those situations where I thought it was working, in the end, it turned out that like focusing all your attention on somebody else is a great way to just kick your own problems down the road for a few years.
Right. It won't fix the underlying problems, but it seems to be the thing that I'm actually able to
Motivated to do.
Yeah, able to put some energy into.
Well, I mean, that is something. But as we've pointed out on multiple occasions this year, we're not the same people, and we don't operate in exactly the same way, and so I can't, like, you know, step on your foot and tell you that you're doing it wrong.
No, yeah.
And
I
like
mean,
motivation is such a rare thing. You gotta grab it when it comes at you, you know.
who wants to get into a serious relationship with the, virtually jobless 30-year-old anyway? So,
Yeah, no. Part of your, if your goal is looking for love, then dealing with that first part is kind of an integral part of the
indeed.
process. I would imagine.
But there are many obstacles to that, which are absolutely no fun to talk about.
No, we don't. This is not necessarily. I mean, I don't want to like come out here being like, this is the year where I finally fucking feel like I figured something out, which is what they say is supposed to happen in your 30s, and I'm like almost 37 now. But I've always felt like about 5 years behind developmentally, regardless, and that continues to be playing out now. I've got that insufferable. Oh yeah, my 30s is when I felt like I found my footing, and I mean, at least this means that my midlife crisis probably won't happen until I'm like almost 50. That'll be cool. But but like, speaking from that angle, and this is what I just wanted to say to everybody, is just like, I bet you can fucking break through this, you know.
I know that I have the potential to.
And you might not even see it coming when it happens.
Yeah. Let's hope.
But let's hope, man. Let's hope the 2020 is the year that Josh gets his shit figured out.
Yeah.
I hope that for so many of our folks. So many of our folks are suffering right now for various reasons, you know.
Yeah. There seem to be...
This is also the year that the Trucks Discord essentially became mostly a sort of therapy zone.
You mean the Trucks channel or the Trucks Discord?
The Trucks Discord. I mean, both, honestly.
It's always the Trucks Discord. Ever since we created the Regrets channel. I guess that might have been this year.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe? I don't fucking remember. Who knows what happens in a year, anyway.
Yeah, I can't remember.
We could like talk about an entire decade right now if we wanted to, but
Yeah.
that sounds even worse, frankly.
I mean, it's kind of the time to do it. And
Did we just finish?
What? No, I'm trying to sleep, but it doesn't look like it
Oh,
actually
okay.
wants me to sleep here. Even though, like, I mean, ignore what's happening with the
that
trailer.
might be the problem.
No, it's definitely not the problem. That's never been a problem before. But look, I'm in this space. Like, that guy's sleeping.
Yeah.
All right, if you really want, I can straighten my trailer out, and it still won't let me sleep. Oh, you know what? It is a new state, so they might have changed the way they program these.
Ooh.
Let's actually try it. Mid-job parking job. Oh, it doesn't look easy. It looks hard.
No, it doesn't. It does. Both of those things.
I'm gonna go look at the other parking spaces.
That seems wise. Where were we before?
We were talking about decade. The feeling of a decade
we
having
could-
passed fills me with dread. I feel like every year this past decade has been more or less the same for me, and I don't want to make this episode a downer, but I kind of mostly have downer feelings about this passing year, unfortunately.
I mean, this Trucks is a show about Josh and Isaac, so if you've got downer feelings, you must express your downer feelings, sir.
We've done a good job previous years of finding the positive angle on the downer.
Yeah, even when we were worried about the apocalypse and all that stuff. But I'm feeling positive enough for both of us, man. You share your stuff. Like,
I think
you
I
know,
already basically have.
Yeah, I mean, consider this year the possibility of a radical break from your current lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what would that look like?
I don't know.
If you just said fuck it and uprooted everything and went and did something else, what would that look like? Because, like, I did that, speaking of a lot of this decade feeling exactly the same for me. Very little personal progress happened to me while I was living in New York. And that's 7 years, It's like I got to do a lot of stuff that I wanted to do, and got, some various ambitions and, thoughts about who I might be and what might be possible out of my system by going and trying them, and mostly failing.
Mm-hmm.
But, New York also makes it, at least for me, made it incredibly difficult for me to get anywhere. And I regret having spent 7 years in New York when I could have spent 5.
I don't think I want to leave New York, or at least I don't know where else I would go.
I mean, you don't. I have the privilege of having a much nicer home to go back to than you do, like in terms of my hometown, and I feel like trying to make it somewhere else without support is maybe equally challenging for some of the same reasons.
I've definitely made all of my best connections in New York, and I don't feel like I've made a complete lack of personal progress. It's just that none of that progress has helped with, like, the stuff that my parents would be the happiest about.
Right.
I don't know. There are things that bum me out about New York. I definitely don't want to get on the same soulless grind that seems to sustain people here. Although it's hard for me to tell if that's...
I don't think there's another way to live, like...
in New York or anywhere at all.
In New York.
Yeah.
Specifically in New York, It's like you can make your way in other places without working as hard.
Yeah.
That is absolutely the truth.
The jobs I'm looking at are remote anyway, generally speaking, and my rent is cheap. So what is it about New York that's gonna force me onto the grind?
Well, maybe nothing. Maybe you'll be one of the lucky ones that has a hustle worked out.
Yeah, I don't know. I truly don't know. And look at this. It's gonna let me sleep right here.
Cool. With your excavator just wangling out in the middle of the road like that.
Yeah. The world has transformed into a dark world.
Yeah.
Turn on the headlights, please. There we go.
Oh, God. Good luck to us all.
Yeah, good luck to us all. I don't know what else to say about this subject, besides wallowing, which I have already established that I'm opposed to.
Yeah, let's move on.
You want to talk about video games?
No, I really fucking don't. This has been the year where I have not paid any attention to video games. Like, my primary attention to video games has been Mario Maker videos, which are an endless source of cheap entertainment.
I have one video game which I think is a worthy recommendation.
Is it Tekken?
It's not Tekken, although this has been the year of Tekken, and there might be some interesting talking about that. But the game that is really good this year, and which also everyone hasn't necessarily already heard of, is Noita, Noita. It's like if Spelunky were a wizard game and had even more like systems that create weird emergent behaviors. The less I say about it, the better, I think.
Okay.
It's great.
Noita. Let me just look that up on Steam.
Yeah, it's in early access still, but it's in...
A magical action roguelike set in a world where every pixel is physically simulated.
Yeah, you ever play those like Falling Sand Flash games way back in the day? It's kind of like if one of those were a roguelike, and also there are magic spells. Its magic system is like the greatest ever. It captures a certain feeling of experimentation and wondering what combinations of things will do.
Gosh, that does look like fun.
It's great.
I certainly don't have the time to play it right now, but it definitely looks like fun.
That's it.
Oh, cool. Thank you for that. I had somehow missed that, and this looks like a good time. It looks like the kind of game where you could like really fuck yourself up in hilarious ways.
Oh yes.
And that's always I'm always a fan of that. The oh god, what have I done? Sort of.
It's also
cascading situation, which is another thing that Splunky is really good for.
It's also delightfully full of secrets.
Secrets. I don't know. Maybe I'll probably be working less hard after Christmas for a while. Maybe I'll play some video games just for fun.
I mean, the nice thing about roguelikes is that you can play them for 15 minutes and have a complete arc of an experience, you know?
Oh yeah, or you can play them for 15 minutes and then realize that you've been playing them for 5 hours, which tends to be my problem with roguelikes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. They added Zelda to Mario Maker.
Yeah,
and by that I mean Link.
Yeah, like kind of Link, Zelda 2 Link, right? Sort of plays a bit like that.
Kind of. It's Zelda 1 Link, but in
2D.
Platformer space.
Right.
Yeah.
Zelda 1 Link was already 2D, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean. With the direction of up and no direction of north or south.
Yeah. I played a little bit of Mario Maker 2, and it kind of bummed me out for some reason.
Everything's bumming you out.
It bummed me out for the normal nitpicky video game reasons.
Yeah, it's not what it could be, but what is?
Little Big Planet. Someone just needs to make Little Big Planet. I mean, this is a fucking last generation game, and in terms of the kinds of things you can make, it puts Mario Maker to complete shame. The only trouble is that the platforming physics in it are garbage.
If it doesn't feel good to play, it's not a good video game.
Yeah, but why can't we just get the best of both worlds? It's been like more than 10 years, I think, since Little Big Planet came out.
Get somebody on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found like an issue that I've been having since I started doing this job is that it's. I mean, you may bemoan the shallow conversation that comes from just talking about whatever media you were watching or experiencing, but my conversational well is just dried up because I don't do anything but work. So like I have no reference. I'm trying to talk to family members or whatnot. I can talk about my job, which is interesting in and of itself up to a certain point, but I'm just sort of this guy who's really excited about walking.
Yeah, it's good.
And that's sort of the extent of it. It doesn't lend itself to punditry. It only occasionally lends itself to poetry.
It's but it has lent itself to extracting that kind of perspective from others. You've encouraged others to go on walks and to talk about walks, and
yeah, I'm willing to be an evangelist for this. Like
that's a takeaway.
My only concern is that and I've definitely verged on this in the last episode, is that I don't want to.
Stand by. What were you saying?
What? I was talking about. Oh yeah. I was saying that I verged on this in the last episode. I don't want to become one of those people who are like, oh, you've got depression, just go outside. Which of course is a thing that people who are depressed hate. And I, having been a depressed person, like would happily share those memes about those fuckers who think they can help you. Fuck them. But also on the other hand, like any suggestion of anything that might help is anathema to a depressed person for
sure,
understandable reasons. But I'm not trying to become an evangelist for this kind of thing in that sense. I'm just like, it is remarkable how, for me at least, like it turns out the things that made me feel better were the things that I wanted to do the least while I was depressed. Like the very least. Like the stuff that just felt really sickening to even consider.
Yeah.
Turned out to be the stuff that made me feel better. And that's like an awful joke for a start, that like it really does make you think of depression as a sort of sickness, that has an interest in its own preservation in the way that it steers you away from things that might be healthy for you.
Yeah, and towards things like the mountain goats.
No good will come of the mountain goats, Josh. Yeah, toward the wallowing which we must try to avoid. I don't know. I mean, check back with me in 6 months whenever this bubble has burst.
Yeah.
Whatever this bubble is has burst, and I'm, sad again, and we can compare notes.
Yeah, I would like to believe that it would be as simple
I'd like to
as-
believe that you'll be feeling shitty again.
No, I would like to believe that it might be as simple as getting the job and getting in the flow of it, but I am sadly equipped with the knowledge that the last time I had a very real job, I completely hated it. It made me miserable, and instead of like the urgency of the work that I had to find a way to make myself to do seemed to make me less likely to do it instead of more likely.
Yeah, every job that I've ever had, did not help until this one.
Interesting. So it's a particular quality
sometimes
of this job. Is it the feeling that you're providing a genuine service, or is it the walking, or is it some combination thereof?
I think it's a large combination of factors. I think it might also just be the point in my life.
Yeah.
It's like I run into this trouble a lot when I'm trying to give advice to the people in our Discord who are young, who are most of the people in the Discord, being like, I went through that problem. What I needed to do was this, do that. When that's a solution that works when you're older and have more experience, but is not something that you can magically do when you're in the thick of it.
I think that the solution for me very well might be to find a job that makes me feel like I'm providing a genuine service and adding value to the world. And I have that job, it's just that it doesn't pay. And I do it, and I like doing it. The trouble is that finding the paying version of that job seems to be difficult.
Hire Josh.
Please.
Yeah. Also, like, we've had this conversation many times, but like, maybe have another go around with your fellow editors about turning this job into a thing that makes money.
I don't want to ruin the website. That would ruin the website. It would ruin it. It would ruin it, and then it would shut down in a year. Like it's not even just pessimism that's making me say that. So
does that mean that the job that you're looking for does not exist because the website always shuts down?
It doesn't exist in video game journalism.
Right. But it exists somewhere.
It does actually exist in video game journalism. It's just that there's a very few particular outposts where it exists. I almost got that job once. It would have been a lot of work for not much pay, but it would have been good.
Yeah, no. It feels like so much, like in addition to our own burdens, we carry our friends' burdens on our back, and everybody's struggling. And it's like, we're just trying to herd everybody toward the magical land of, feeling okay a lot of the time. And recognizing that a lot of folks' solutions are not the same as the other folks' solution. I genuinely feel like one of the key points about this job that's made my brain work better is that it makes me too tired to worry all the time. Like it just makes me so tired that I can't fret, and it gives me permission not to fret, and therefore I get a lot more done.
Yeah.
It's one of those strange things. It's like it just short circuits all of this bullshit by making me very, very tired, but in a good way, as opposed to very, very tired without having done anything, which was my normal before. Yeah. Tired from all the fretting, I suppose.
Yeah, I've definitely got a lot of fretting. It's definitely making it hard to sleep.
Yeah, the fucking fretting is the thing. Maybe start with anti-anxiety meds and see if that helps. Like, there's a lot of different ways into this. Move to Oregon and buy free weed. Well, not free,
buy
obviously,
free
but buy legal
weed.
weed.
Hell yeah, that's who needs a job at that point?
Come live in my apartment.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I make friends so slowly, Isaac, and I've got so few as it is. I don't think uprooting myself is going to make me feel any better.
Maybe moving to a place where people aren't incredibly busy all the time and will actually hang out with you when you make plans with them.
Maybe. I don't know, though. It comes at the cost of all my friends.
That's true.
Doesn't feel appetizing.
Nah, I know. I also don't have any place for you to stay here. It would be kind of miserable. Like, you would have to stay on my terrible futon.
Yeah. Maybe I should move to a place where being an artist is like a thing you can actually do.
Got to move to Taos.
Where the hell is that?
It's in New Mexico. It's one of those artist colonies.
Ah.
There's a bunch of those little towns in the middle of nowhere, which are very pretty, and artists go and live there, but only artists who've already made all of their money.
Yeah, I've heard some rumblings that you can go be a starving artist in Philly and have an okay time of it. I don't know.
I hear that is less and less true every year.
I'm
but,
sure.
Certainly more true than it is in New York.
You only hear about these things after they're becoming untrue. You kind of have to get in ahead of the game.
Yep. Fucking Kentucky, man.
Yeah?
I've been saying this for years.
Say it.
Try Kentucky.
What's happening in Kentucky?
Cheap rent.
Yeah.
And like any red state city with cheap rent is going to have really impassioned leftists because they exist everywhere, and you have to be more impassioned if you're surrounded by horrors.
Yeah.
You know?
Here's the number one best thing I saw this year, and which is also one of the things that makes me, is this light ever going to turn green? There it is. Which is also one of the things that makes me feel great about living in New York. I went to the Metropolitan Opera. My mom took me and saw the new production of Akhenaten by Philip Glass. Holy shit.
Yeah, there is that. They're like, bullshitting about whatever pop culture is one thing, but seeing really great art, that's food.
Mm-hmm.
That is food for what ails you, right there.
I had my troubles on my mind the whole time, and yet still, it was enriching. Let me explain what made this so good real quick.
Go for it.
I looked into this, and previous productions of this opera have kind of, looked visually like you would expect an opera to look. The performers sort of gesticulate and use motion to add emotion to their performance, right? In this one,
we know how you feel about that.
It's a fine thing, but in this one, they made it look the way the music sounds, and like this is early Philip Glass, so it's very much like I'm doing the arpeggios. I'm doing barely anything but the arpeggios. Some of them are the same arpeggios from Koyaanisqatsi, but it does a little different thing right here. And like you're just gonna get entranced by this kind of slow churning vortex of music that I'm constructing. And the actors on stage for this production just move with like processional certainty, very, very slowly, about performing like the single action they're performing this act, even if that action is something that ought to be quite frenetic and dramatic, like overthrowing the monotheism or the pantheism, the polytheism, like routing the priests out of the churches, or like having your empire overthrown by the angry populace. It's all. I am making a gesture of fear, but I'm doing it over the course of 10 minutes,
Right. Yeah.
And the only thing that moves quickly on the stage is, and this is going to sound funny, is the jugglers. They got some jugglers, like this really talented juggling troupe on the opera stage, and it's actually a genius idea, because is this going to open?
Bonk.
I didn't bonk it. It opened.
Hey.
Thanks for not bonking me. The jugglers are actually very clever, because it looks exactly the way the music sounds. It go up, it go down, and then it go up again.
That does sound amazing. Hey, we ended up talking about art after all, but I feel enriched.
Yeah. If you can make it to wherever this is gonna go on, I don't know where. Opera seems weird. Like, it seems like they put this amazing thing that everybody on like the national public radio is raving about on for like a week or two, and then maybe it comes back.
It's very expensive.
Yes. And the Metropolitan Opera has some cheap seats, relatively speaking.
It is mostly, it's very expensive to produce.
Oh yes, yes. And all these opera singers are and like the orchestras too, they're so booked up. They've got some other shit to go do.
There's not a whole lot of people in the world who can do that kind of stuff. And the God help us, what will happen when the boomers are no longer around to pay for high
Oh
art?
God, I don't know. You can like go see like classical music played in the basement of the Brooklyn Public Library. Did you even know that they have a stage down there, like with nice acoustics?
I had no idea.
And it's free, and the entire audience is old folks because the old folks know where the good free stuff is.
God damn. Yeah, I've been. A thing about this job is that I listen to way more classical music now than I used to because I prefer that as a soundtrack to this work because it's calming. And yeah, no, I could do that. I could go in the basement of the Brooklyn Library. I wish I'd known about that for the 7 years that I lived in New York City.
You can continue to discover these things.
I suppose you can. Yeah, I mean, I still, all of my romantic feelings about New York are still there. Don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. It's just like it turns out it wasn't what I needed.
Yeah.
I mean, which is kind of sad in its own way, but
yeah, it's like one half of what I need, and the rest of it is the opposite of what I need, and I'm still trying to figure out how to navigate that.
Good luck, man. I hope we all find that.
Yeah.
My goal for 2020 is that by the end of it, I'm living in Ithaca, New York, and the number of things that will have to go right for that to happen are such that it'll be very unlikely that does in fact happen. But you know what? It might, and if not 2020, then maybe 2021.
Yeah.
But it's very strange to be sort of seeing the outline of a situation that I could be like, I could find myself happy in this for like the indefinite future. That's very strange to start to think in those terms. But I guess that's part of hitting those milestones reliably late, the way that I do.
Yeah, there's that. I believe it's a post going around Tumblr that points out that children from dysfunctional households hit the stride of adulthood 10 years late.
10 years? Well, I'm only 5 years behind. It's I mean, I guess my household was only half dysfunctional. So there you go. I'm always half. I always do things by halves. That's part of why I'm able to do what I can do, is that I have one foot in the world of the fucked up and one foot in the world of the okay. And so I can kind of communicate between them.
Yeah. I guess like the note I would like to end on here is that I have been complaining about my stagnancy. And the thing is that I really don't feel like I have been like just miserable, I feel like I've been having so many of the kinds of experiences that I've wanted to have, and I think I said like 2 years ago on one of these year-end trucks that I feel like my ability to process beauty keeps getting more and more robust, and that I was looking forward to the continuation of that process, and that has happened, and it feels at this point like maybe that is getting close to its apex, and that's an awesome feeling. It's just that this doesn't put food on the table, and it doesn't guarantee me a stable life.
I think that, having perfected your ear, it's like you have been over the past few years just eating this enormous dinner, and the dinner has gotten more intricate and refined as you've gone along, and you are now to the point where your palate is just thrumming, and you are just discovering all of the tones and mineral content in the last sip of the last glass of water that you're having at this dinner.
I looked at an Agnes Martin painting the other week, and it made me want to cry.
Yeah, no, you've become the aesthete, and now, Josh, it is time to go out there and take that shit.
What does that mean? Make an album? Because yeah.
It's time to having perfected your sight. It's time to use that vision to determine your actions. It's time to turn from the passive principle to the active principle.
Yeah. Well. See, the trouble with that is that this process has put me in a position where it makes me feel like I want to make some really great art, And I feel like as much as maybe I could do that if I put myself toward it, I am A, having a hard time putting myself toward it because of the more practical circumstances in my life, and B, it feels like I ought to be more stable before I can put myself to doing that. Or maybe those are the same thing. But what I'm trying to say is that one of those is a practical concern and the other is an emotional concern, right?
I'd like to put it to you that it's the same process. Like the process of you can't do that in much the same way that you can't have the long-term, fulfilling relationship while you're still floundering. You can't make the great art while you're still floundering.
But can you make the great art while you are working your ass off day in, day out?
No, not at the same time. But you might have to work your ass off for a while in order to get to a point where you don't have to work quite as hard and can make the art.
Will that really happen? I'm a millennial, Isaac.
I think it could. And part of the reason that I think that it could is that also you get better at doing the work. It consumes less of you as you go because you gain stamina and experience and figure out how to, fit it into your life. This is all This is all possible, is what I'm saying.
You're right about that.
And I think that in terms of motivation, it's working for me to view it as all part of the same continuum, not a choice that I have to make between the one and the other thing, which is an old meme and a boomery meme, to be quite frank. But to look at it is, what do I have to do in order to get to where I want?
Well, okay. I'll try. I hope you, listener, are having a better New Year than I am. I mean, fucking who knows? It's the 10th. Maybe by the 31st I'll be feeling amazing.
I hope so.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, and I'm looking forward to seeing you, Josh, which I will be very shortly after the New Year.
Yeah, that's going to be dope. So long.
Bye-bye.